Hey, everybody, this is Tim Shaw. And you might be wondering why I am just dressed so splendidly. I am dressed so just beautifully. I am just like in my finest Regency outfit. I don't have a coat, and it's really not that fine because this is more of a worker's clothes. But tonight we have a great guest. We're going to be talking about Victorian Christmas. We're going to talk about some of our other books. Oh my God, she's phenomenal. She's phenomenal, and you guys are going to love every second of it. Now, guys, now. Let me just talk real quickly. I want to get serious. I got two dear friends that need a little help. And matter of fact, Johnny's in the room. As a matter of fact, send healing energies to my buddy Johnny Kennedy, because Johnny Kennedy is one of the best investigators out there. He's gotten a little ill, because he's getting old in the tooth. You know how those cranky, crotchety old New Englanders are that transplant to Michigan. But guys, send them a lot of love, send them a lot of healing. And also, my buddy Jim had open heart surgery today, and Jim and I go back quite a number of years. We both took an advanced mediumship class from my mentor Sharon Klingler back in Louisville, way back in the old days before he retired. He retired a decade probably before I did. So let's send some focused healing to these two guys, because especially my buddy Johnny, because he's a legend. He's a legend. And I'm talking in his old mind. Johnny's a true legend. I love him so much. I miss him. Hey, also, listen, a lot of people were asking why I didn't make Vegas this year. And there was a lot of, how can I describe it? Interesting events that happened. And you know what? I give kudos to anybody who puts on a big mega event like that. But there was just some problems that arose. And, listen, you can't make them all. And I'm very glad things all worked out for the best, because I got a chance to really stay at home and really enjoy myself and you guys know how much I love flying. And so I didn't miss a thing. I don't like flying, so I didn't want to go at all. But so I'm sorry to everybody out there that I didn't make the Vegas trip, but we'll make it up to you someplace along the line, because we got a lot of interesting things already lined up for 2022. Now, the next thing I want to bring up is, we're going to have up at Paranormal Oddities in Depew, New York, South Central Depew, New York on Transit Road, of course. I'm going to do a little series of events called Cabin Fever Lecture Series, where we're going to do table tipping. I'm going to teach seance. We're going to talk about different things pertinent to what else to the paranormal and the spiritual. So we're going to be doing some things like that, because it's really important for people during the off years. And I'm going to say, or off time, not off years, but off time, to keep busy and keep your mind going and keep going and working. So check that out. Now, I also want to give a book review. And unfortunately, I don't have the book with me. I'm finishing up a book on Aleister Crowley. And the reason why I'm doing that, because I've had an interest in Aleister Crowley for a long time. I've got pieces from his home up in Loch Ness that I have in my collection, and he's an interesting person, to say the least. So that being said, I'm learning a little bit more about Aleister Crowley, and the more I learn about him, the more I shake my head and go, nah. I don't think I'd invite him over to to a pizza and beer night at my house. I don't think he's the type of person I'd want to bring on. I don't think I'd want to hang out with him. I'd like to meet him once in a while, but I don't know if I like to hang out with him. But let's go to our guest tonight. Now, our guest, her list of accomplishments are amazing. First off, I'm going to come right out and tell you guys, she is an amazing speaker. If you guys ever get a chance to hear her speak, do it. She's amazing. She captures your focus. She brings depth to the subject, and that's why I love her. I think she's probably one of the best. I would say probably one of the best speakers in Western New York, without even a doubt. No, but she's an author, and I always kid her about being the next Rosemary Ellen Guiley. But little did I know that she was going to take that and attack me with it. It was like amazing, because why? When I said that to her, she had one book out. The next thing I know, she is so accomplished because her books are The Haunted Atlas of Western New York, America's Haunted Breweries, Distilleries, and Wineries. And I know that's a lot of you. That's close to your heart. Even my Scrooge heart tonight. That's one of my things I love. Ghost of the Ghostlight Theater, and she'll tell you about. I believe that they're having another upcoming paranormal investigation there. If you get a chance to do it, do it. I will try to make it for that one because I love exploring that building. It's amazing. She's done the she's I will say curated. She collected all these wonderful stories and articles and all this from all sorts of women writers, and that's what I love about a female macabre, uh, volumes 1 and 2. And let me just tell everybody out there: people need to understand that women should be more active in the paranormal field. There's, you got Andrea Perron and, some of the people on TV, but you need somebody out there that's really got boots on the ground and really has some uh, great interest in it. Okay, guys, because sometimes the male ego needs to be kicked down a little bit because I'll be honest with you, back in the day, most mediums were women, and there is a strong, very, very strong tradition still to this day that women make better mediums than men. And I'll be honest with you, even as an instructor, I kind of feel that way too. I really do. I think women have really a higher stake in it. She has written children's books. Krampus's Big Book of Yuletime Monsters. Where was she when I was a kid? How come I didn't get stuff like this? This is what I wanted. Uh, the Cryptid ABC book. Amazing. I love that. I think it's great. And her current work we're going to talk about tonight, A Very Frightful Victorian Christmas. I want everybody to welcome a good friend of the show, a good friend of mine, someone who I really admire, and someone who is one of the up and coming people that is, well, all I'm going to say is when you see her, she's the real deal. Please welcome Amanda Woomer Limpert. And I hope I said her name right because I never get it right. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, shoo! I said your name right. I
Yes.
had to. You know why? Because I always have to practice it because it's real close to somebody else's name, and I'm always like, Wimpert. Am I supposed to say Wimpert? Is that what? No. So I did write it down. How are you? Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. This is my last show of 2021, so I'm excited that it would be you.
Well, I am very, very excited. And on top of it, we got a chance to see Amanda is wearing her lovely Krampus shirt. It's sweatshirt. And I will say that is not a ugly Christmas sweater. I
Thank
like
you.
it because of the fact that it's, well, makes me warm and fuzzy inside just thinking that some creature would run down the street and grab all the little bad little boys and girls and throw
Yes.
them into a sack and take off with them. Sometimes I think to myself, well, not here, but where we used to live. I wish Krampus would have stopped next door for a while, but that's another story. And a lot of people want to know why I'm dressed like this. Well, we're talking about Victorian Christmas. We're going to talk a little bit about uh, why the Victorians love to be scared, because uh, the more I delve into it, and I've delved into it for quite a few years, the more I start reading, the more I start realizing that the Victorian mindset was, well, I think they would have loved a lot of the horror movies that have come out today because
Yes.
there was nothing better than just sitting there by the fire and having a story shared with you.
Yeah.
Now, first off, let's just get back to basics because I know how you got into this. I remember. I was gonna tell you that I remember the first time that we met. We were up in Canada. We were
Yes.
both at an event, and I went down and I was like, oh my god, it's her. It's her. I was like a fanboy. I was like this fanboy going up there,
And
Amanda.
you were the first person to buy a copy of the Haunted Atlas.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
God. Well, I feel special now. You know that book I have upstairs now, it might be on eBay, I don't know yet. The very first book sold. No.
Yes.
No. Amanda, let me ask you this. What possessed you to start writing into this genre? Because of the fact that you're intelligent, you're all over the place. You've got so many different focuses, but why this genre? Why are you really like just loving this?
So I've always been a writer. I won my first award for writing when I was 12 years old, but I always wrote fantasy, sci-fi, horror. So I was always writing fiction. And while I still enjoy doing that, I really saw a niche that was wide open for especially what I like to focus on, haunted hospitality. Oh, thank you. So I found this niche and I decided to just, try to fill it with the Haunted Atlas and America's Haunted Breweries, Distilleries, and Wineries, and just kind of see where it went from there. And so for me, what really got me into the paranormal was the death of my little brother, Jed. He passed away in 2015 after a battle with pediatric cancer. And that was kind of the kick in the behind that I needed to really start researching the paranormal and not just going on investigations for fun, but really researching it and trying to understand it. And I had so many questions about life and death and what came next. And I knew other people had similar questions. Everyone loses someone at some point in their lives. So this wasn't, a solo journey for me. Everyone's on a paranormal journey of sorts. So by writing these books, especially the travel-oriented ones, was my way of kind of bringing the paranormal to everyone. So many times I hear people talk about how, well, I can't go on a ghost hunt. I'm not brave enough. I don't have a team. And I didn't like the idea that the paranormal is just for people on TV. Like, it's for everyone. And everyone has these personal questions that need to be answered, and nobody can answer these questions but yourself. So my hope with these books is that they're kind of like a roadmap of sorts that people can look at and go to these various locations to come to those conclusions for themselves. And it's been fun taking that mentality of bringing the paranormal to masses and evolving it with the feminine macabre and with the children's books and now with the Victorian Christmas book, just trying to find new ways to introduce the paranormal to different audiences that might not otherwise have necessarily been interested in it.
You're right. I think everybody has some kind of a interest in the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And but one of the biggest things that I get is that, well, Tim, you're lucky because you get to go to these places on somebody else's dime, and it's true. And I thank everybody for that. Believe me. Thank you so much. But there's so many things that we can do just to be able to do the research, to be able to go driving to a place that may be haunted. And I love your atlas. First of all, I mean, I wrote Haunted Buffalo, and believe me, or The Ghost of Buffalo. I can't even remember my own book name. It's been so long. But when I picked up your atlas, the atlas was great because of the fact it gave you where it was, gave you the story, but it also gave you something more. And it was written in a way that you want to go and check these places out. And you want to go, and a lot of people are like, well, it's going to cost me $100 a person to get into these places. You've got some big name places out there that, I understand that you got to put a roof on your head, but it can be a little cost prohibitive. Most of the places that you have gone and highlighted are places that you can kind of go. It's either reasonable, it's free, or it's a restaurant. So you're going to go to a haunted restaurant and you get a chance to go and eat in this place. Hey. What's better than that? Or a distillery or a winery or something. That is what I loved about it. It was genius. It was genius. And I thought to myself, why didn't I think of that? But apparently I'm not as smart as you.
No.
I'm just telling you that right now. One of the questions that had come in was, in all of Western New York, what was the one place that you really, I guess, is your number one place that you love to either visit, to investigate, to hang out at? What's the number one place? And
I mean,
I know the answer.
if anyone knows me, it's the Ghostlight Theater in North Tonawanda. I've been a member of the theater company doing shows and stuff since 2006, I think. So it's been a few years. And it's just one of those places that I feel is so dense with its history, but also with the energy there. And of course, I've spent the most time at the Ghostlight as opposed to other haunted locations. So statistically speaking, I'm going to have more experiences there. But just the experiences that I've had there that have been both jarring, but also extraordinarily heartwarming and healing for me in my grieving process. Nothing else even comes close to it.
I agree.
It's just this beautiful building, this beautiful location. There's really nothing negative or nasty there, so there's no reason to like be afraid to go on an investigation there. So it's the Ghostlight Theater. Whenever people ask me, I'm always like, well, it's always the same answer, but at least I'm consistent.
Have to ask. Listen, you have to ask these questions. These are important. Well, the reason I'm asking is because in Western New York, there are so many really great places. I mean, really unbelievable places. But I love going there because of the fact that, well, I'm going to share this with everybody. Last time I was in there, I'm standing there, or I'm sitting in the front of the on the front of the theater, and all of a sudden I see like a little head go like this and then disappear, and it was up on top. This, I don't know, like a little. I don't even know what you would call it. The little curved piece that.
Yeah, technically, I think it's like the altar. I guess.
Yeah, it's right up in that altar area.
Yeah.
And I remember Rick Perry, guy from up this way. I grabbed him by the shoulders and go, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And I mean, I was the only one that saw it. And later, we were in the back, and I was by your mom, and I was just walking. I turned around. I felt like something was like looking at me. I looked. Sure enough, there it was again. And your mom was talking to a group, and she let the group go. And I said, "Hey, I just got to tell you something. I just saw what looked like a little boy." And she was so cute. She goes like this. "You mean like, did he look like this?" I went, "Ah!" Like, I was like, "Holy crap." I mean, and it was Jed, your brother. And I was just like, so first of all, I was like shocked. Second of all, I was so honored that I got a chance to see him.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, I'm sure, but it was just, it was really, I'm still to this day, I get perclumped from it because of the fact it was like such a peak experience. And it was so personal for you guys that has surpassed any place that I've ever been, and now has supplanted itself in my number one spot. I really do. And I just love it. I encourage everybody to go there. I encourage everybody to go. I love going to the plays there.
Yeah.
Because you guys put on some freaky ass plays. I have to tell you.
Thank you.
The Day of the Dead and Dracula and all that. Oh my God. That was
the next one coming up, I wrote it. It's Jekyll and Hyde. It's my adaptation of it. So, and it's going to be freaky deaky. So it's going to be fun.
I can't wait. Yep. Rick Perry says Ghostlight Theater is amazing.
Hi, Rick.
And it really is. It really is. I can't wait for the next, I might have to go, and I might have to get tickets. I might have to even get season tickets. I don't know. That might be the thing that opens up my wallet. So I just want to let you know. And there's not a whole lot. What is it that makes you uneasy? Like I've seen you at a couple different places. And have you ever felt like gone into locations and just like didn't feel like welcomed, or sort of just like, eh?
Luckily, not really. I've never been to a location or had an experience where I was so unnerved by it that I never went back. I've had a couple of weird experiences. For me, I am so uncomfortable around mirrors. I don't really know why. I want to like do more research into like the folklore and the superstitions surrounding them, but it's just ever since I was a little girl, I did not like mirrors. Even now, I'm an adult. We have one mirror in our house. It's in the bathroom, away from me. I don't want it. I had my really like freakiest encounter with a mirror. So recently I was at Madison Seminary over in Ohio,
Beautiful
and
place.
they have their mirrors covered up. And I was almost too afraid to ask. And then some of the stories that came out of it surrounding some of the women that I know from the feminine macabre and some of my friends,
Yes.
I was just like, you guys aren't helping my fear of mirrors. This is not helping me at all. So it's not a specific location or a specific experience that I've had, but really whenever I'm in a room with multiple mirrors or even just one larger mirror where it's like almost its own presence in and of itself, I usually stick it out, but the entire time I've got like one eye focused on it because I just don't trust it at all.
Well, I mean, that's an old, tradition. I mean, when somebody passes away, you want to cover the mirrors. You want to open the window and cover the mirrors because the mirrors hold the soul. They're a reflection of the soul. And it was explained to me that the soul gets caught in between the glass and the whatever, the mercury or whatever it is on the back, that and it will stay in there, and then it becomes trapped and it can't go on, and that brings negativity, unhappiness into the house. And it's crazy when you start seeing that. And I've seen it actually in modern homes too. So it's a wonderful thing. Now let's talk about the feminine macabre. Why did you? And I know the reason for it, and I'm so thrilled that you did it. Why did you feel that it was so important to bring women together to share these stories and put them into this book to really, highlight? And you got some heavy, and Amanda, you got two heavy hitters that really wrote the forwards to your book.
I'm just as surprised as everyone else.
Why? No, Amanda, I got to tell you, you shouldn't be, because all they have to do is look at a draft of anything that you send, and it's quality. It's top quality. So
yeah. So basically, with the feminine macabre, I was doing a show back, I think like January 2020. Like it was a while ago now. Could have even been earlier than that. And I was doing a talk on women in the paranormal, historically speaking. So we were talking about Catherine Crowe, Eleanor Sidgwick, Lorraine Warren, just to spice things up a bit because people are heated on that topic.
You think?
Yeah, like you love it or hate it. I don't know what it is. Yeah. And I realized that aside from Lorraine Warren, nobody had any idea who I was talking about. And I'm convinced that most people really know Lorraine Warren from the Conjuring movies, especially mainstream people, outside of the paranormal. So it just got me thinking. And then, you're watching the reality TV shows and you're like, well, there's all male shows, but no all female shows. And if there is a woman, she's always countered with a man. Why is this? I go to events, I host events, and the majority of people there are women. And the guys that are there look like they were dragged there against their will half the time.
It's true.
It's so true.
Rick Perry and I are the only two guys. When you go there, Rick Perry and I are like, yeah, this is great. And then you see everybody else like this.
They're like, impress me. Exactly it though. So I just it really got me thinking. And so I just kind of put out a call for submissions for, people who identify as female within the community, to write anything, whether it's hauntings or tarot or witchcraft, cryptids, dark history, folklore. And I was afraid that I would have to pretend to be like 30 different women just to get it up and running. That was not the case at all. So for volume 1, the foreword is by Patty Negri. And we had over 100 submissions, and we whittled it down to about 20 or 30. I don't really remember. Volume 2, we got Michelle Bellinger. And we had about 40 people in that one. So we have volume 3 submissions open right now until January 1st. So if anyone's watching and is considering, writing something, I really want to encourage you. You don't have to be previously published. You don't have to be a ghost hunter or a paranormal investigator. Really, I just say if you're interested in a topic, choose that topic, research it a little bit, and write about it. I really want to encourage people to take that chance and do it. So submissions are open until January 1st. That's all I'm going to say. Spend your holidays writing for the Feminine Macabre, Volume 3. So
I think it's fantastic. And again, we talked about it several times. I think that there should be more women in the field itself, not just like, in the, I don't want to say this, but it's like the giggle factor girls, that they go out there and it's like they want to be thrilled and the giggling, go to a haunted house, go to a commercial haunted house.
Yeah.
I really am looking for women that are so serious, and I'm lucky because I got a chance to meet quite a few of them.
Yeah.
But they're so serious. They really know their stuff. They know the equipment. They know the methodology. But the problem is they never really had the opportunity to write about it. And I am so thrilled that you've done that. And I encourage people to sit down and write and submit. That's what the field needs more of. End of story. End of story. Now, okay. Why did you buy? Next thing I've got to ask you, because these are things that I feel like after seeing your children's books, I feel that I'm missing something out of my childhood. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So why did you write them? And I think we just lost. We'll get her back. We'll get her back. But her children's books are truly, truly, truly amazing. Truly amazing. I'm going to go back and we'll bring her in as soon as we get it. And if you're listening in, just go back to the link there, Amanda, and we'll come back to you. But Amanda's works, the reason why I love Amanda's works is that there is such a great personality behind the words. She's honest, and I see her go out there and do different things. And she impresses me. She impresses me. And she has such a wonderful presence. That's the best way I can say it. She has a wonderful presence. And we always have a good time when we work together. And that's the fun of it. Now, I'm just going to go to a commercial break and hopefully we can get her back as soon as possible. And you're listening to What Else? The Black Cat Lounge here on the Facebook Black Cat Lounge Network. See you in a little bit. The Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Paranormal Oddities, The Little Store with the Big Heart, Buffalo Phantom Hunters, Patronus Photographic for all of your photography and design needs, Nancy's Sewing Room, masks, aprons, purses, and more, and Wild Raven Candles for those magical times. Hey, and we're back, and oh, look who's back. Hey, you know what? See what happens when we start talking about crazy stuff? It becomes paranormal. It becomes crazy. That's all it was. We were starting to just kind of poke the devil a little bit. Poke the devil, and look what happened. It happens. It happens. Aww. It happens all the time. That's the fun of doing anything live. But now let's talk about your latest work, because that to me is I think it's something that I've been waiting for. Why did you think what attracted you to a Victorian Christmas? Why? Isn't it great? I love it.
It's been one of those things that's always kind of eaten away at me. If anyone has gotten the book already, they'll see my introduction where I talk about when I was a little kid, I heard the Andy Williams song, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, on the radio. And he talks about there'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. And I just remember sitting in the car with my dad and asking him, like, what is with that? Halloween is the scary ghost story holiday, not Christmas. And he sat there for a second. My dad sat there and thought, and I know he made up an answer right on the spot, but he said, well, think about A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol is a scary ghost story. Mm-hmm. And he was 100% correct. He didn't realize it. So, as I've been moving forward since my brother passed away, the holidays have become extraordinarily difficult. And it's been a journey trying to navigate with new traditions. How are we going to celebrate this holiday? Jed's birthday is December 23rd. Then you have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So it's a really heavy time. And that's kind of where I started embracing the idea of the old traditions of telling scary stories at Christmas time and throughout the winter months. It's not just a Victorian thing. If you look at Krampus and, the Yule Cat and so many different stories from all over the world. People have been telling scary stories at Christmas time and during the winter months, probably forever. The winter months are the scariest. They're the longest. They're the darkest. And there's no guarantee that you'll survive, even up into the Victorian and the Edwardian era. You didn't necessarily have indoor plumbing or grocery stores or these guaranteed, luxuries to make sure that you make it through the winter months. So, and I think people have always enjoyed being scared, kind of like what you said a little while ago. The Victorians would love our horror movies coming out. It's exactly the same. We like to be scared. We just get scared by watching paranormal reality shows or watching horror movies or going on paranormal investigations. Whereas 100 years ago, 200 years ago, people would have seances or tell fortunes or tell scary ghost stories on Christmas Eve. So it was gradually over the years, I've always been intrigued by the idea of telling ghost stories at Christmas time. But then, similar to my journey with the paranormal in general, it was after my brother passed away, it was me really kind of embracing the idea of, maybe the veil is thin at the holidays, just like they say it's thin at Halloween time. And so many people struggle at the holidays. And, I think the mandated merriment and the pressure of the perfect gift is wearing on people. So to kind of return back to those simpler times, those simpler roots, and be like, hey, you know what? Instead of getting gifts for everyone, let's just all get together. We'll make some punch, let's make some food, and let's just sit together and talk and hang out, play some games, and maybe tell a few ghost stories.
I love it. I just love the whole idea behind it. And I mean, if we start looking at it historically, it goes back further than the Victorian times, like we talked. I mean, Tituba used to go and told the girls in Salem, before the hysterics happened, ghost stories during those long winter months. And you figure that people have done this, and like you said, right back probably to the earliest men, because you had bards, you had all these mystical people that would hold these traditions and pass them on and go, and we also have to remember that psychologically we're always looking for an excuse sometimes for what's going on. And of course, you have ghosts, you have evil demons, you have this and that. Sumerians, you start looking at Sumerian gods. That's pretty nasty stuff. I love the fact that you gathered together all these wonderful stories, put them in a book, because so many, I really feel that that was a hole that a lot of people did not have. Doing a lot of Civil War reenacting, knowing civilian reenactors, most people are military. They would go and follow the mores of what was going on. They would do they would walk the steps. But when it came to Christmas, it just kind of fell apart. They never had that.
Yeah.
And to me, this was so important. Now, out of everything, is there anything when you were researching this book that surprised you?
Oh, gosh. I think the thing that surprised me the most was just how common it was for these stories to be written and published and told throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. Obviously Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol is the most famous one, but there were other famous writers that had these stories either focused at Christmas time or directly published for a Christmas periodical. Edgar Allan Poe published one. I believe it was The Pit and the Pendulum was specifically written at Christmas time.
Yes.
Robert Louis Stevenson, which his story, The Body Snatcher, I include in here. And so it's it wasn't just people getting together with their friends to tell a scary story that they experienced themselves, which is cool in and of itself. But it was some of the greats, the literary greats, that kind of fell right into it also. So it was a sort of thing that I feel really, it just bridged the gap between social classes. The lower classes would tell these stories as well as the upper classes and the famous writers. So many of these stories were written by men and women,
right,
not anonymous. And then you had these famous people that even during their own lifetimes, they were very well known, very successful, but they still would take the time to write a creepy Christmas story. So I just thought that was so interesting that even with like, you know, his success with Treasure Island and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Robert Louis Stevenson, he still wrote a creepy Christmas story. So I just think it's so cool that it just, everyone just got into the spirit.
Now, a lot of stories, studying some of the Aboriginal stories that I have with when I was taking training under Tom Brown Jr., the American Mystic Tracker and all that. He's amazing. A lot of the tales are cautionary tales. When you were researching this, did you find any cautionary tales where you're like, oh, you know what? The writer now is like kind of like, well, we have to go and like warn people about things that, you know, maybe not to open that door, or, you know, what does the knocking mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There were some that were very like romance driven or revenge driven. But there were a few of them where you could see that I feel like they had roots in those old legends and lore and the stories that were orally passed down with, again, Krampus and, you know, Lucy and La Befana, all these stories of like, well, if you don't do this, this will happen to you. You know, nowadays we have, you know, coal in our stocking if we don't do something right. But like other stories where, no, you might die if you don't follow the rules, if you don't pay attention, if you snoop where you're not supposed to, different things like that. So it's very interesting. And I don't know if these stories were used as a way to frighten children into behaving along with the legends of Krampus and so on. But definitely, of course, there was cautionary tales as well as just frivolous tales. So it was fun to kind of like mix and match the different stories and, you know, put together something that was representative of both men and women and various centuries. You know, I think the earliest piece was from 1830 and the latest one I think was from like 1915. So it spanned the Victorian era and the Edwardian era. And it was so much fun to write. It really was, to include the ghost stories and the recipes. And I found that, you know, like you mentioned, that it was, you know, a whole area that was missed by both, I feel like by both paranormal people and also historians. I have friends that they follow Spook Eats because they love me, but it is not their thing. They don't like haunted stuff at all.
Who doesn't love you, Amanda? Who doesn't love you? There's not even a short list with you. Me, I got Santa's naughty list myself. I can do the whole page. But you know, it's funny now when you say about coal and you start looking at the Victorian age, coal was a necessity. So now when we get coal in our stockings, it's negative. But boy, back in the Victorian age, I think if they got coal, they were really happy getting that damn coal.
Right? Yes, you know, we can stay warm today.
Yeah, I mean, and even when you start looking at the Christmas Carol, I mean, Scrooge was like miserly when it came to how much coal you could burn to heat the office. They're always talking about everything always being cold. And at one point, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember if it was in the movie or in the books. I read the book several years ago, that Bob Cratchit couldn't write a letter because his ink froze.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, you think, wow, and we take all this for granted. Back then, I mean, people lived in the cold. Everything was different, you know. Yeah. So a lot of it was really dependent upon if you were extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
But even extremely wealthy people, the only difference between extremely wealthy people and poor people were the size of the rug that you put your feet on in the cold, in that cold winter night.
Yeah.
Now you put recipes in there. Tell everybody about recipes, because this year I learned about like funeral cakes.
Yes.
And I was just like, I was enthralled by the whole idea of that. So what kind of recipes did you find that you included in your work?
So I included 6 recipes based off of Victorian recipes. I tweaked them a little bit just for 21st century grocery stores and ingredients and taste. But we've got 2 drinks. So we've got wassail punch,
Yes.
I had
Oh,
to
excuse me.
include.
Excuse me.
No.
Excuse me. I'm a wassail guy. I love wassail.
Yeah.
I love the song. I love I like to drink wassail.
Yeah.
I like running around and beating on apple trees with sticks. I mean,
It's
I'm
a
one of
good
those people.
time.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Unless you're an apple tree, but that's
that's
another
true.
story.
That's true. And it's fun because each of the recipes I included a little bit of the history on it and what exactly it is. So I do talk about, wassail being the act of, you're going from house to house singing Christmas carols, like the song Here We Come a Wassailing, which transformed into Here We Come a Caroling because Americans didn't know what wassail was. But wassail is also, a hot beverage. Sometimes it's cider, sometimes it's a fruit punch. Usually there's alcohol included to help keep you warm, so that's always fun. But then I also have hot brandy and rum punch. So that's another nice warm recipe for people to have. I also included figgy pudding, of course. You can't have Christmas without figgy pudding, as well as mince pies. So Mr. Spook Eats is the baker in the family. And he's done things like that with mince pies before, and he'll make the pastry from scratch. So I left that for him to do. And then I also included 2 soups. So I am a soup fanatic. I make soup at least twice a week. And so I included an oyster stew, which was very popular. It actually came over when Irish immigrants started coming over. And the fact that many of them were Catholic and couldn't eat meat the day before a religious holiday. So instead of having goose or ham or turkey, they would have lingfish over in Ireland. And when they came to the United States, particularly New York City, they switched it out for oysters because oysters were plentiful in New York City at the time. And that was one of those dishes that just spanned social classes. If you were wealthy, you had oysters. And if you were homeless, you would eat oysters too. And then the final recipe is my absolute favorite recipe. It is mock turtle soup. I am obsessed with it. I've made it about 4 times now. So if anyone is thinking of trying a recipe first, that's the one that I recommend just because it's so interesting. It's sweet, it's spicy, it's savory. The mock turtle is just stew beef, so it's, not a questionable meat. And the fun thing with that, that was always eaten around Christmas time. And it was so popular in the 17th century and into the 18th century, so popular in England that the royal family became so obsessed with it that green turtles were almost, hunted to extinction, which brought about the mock turtle soup that the lower classes could enjoy. And it actually became more popular than green turtle soup. Mock turtle soup became more popular. Heinz and Campbell's both created like canned versions of it. I read, I don't know if it's true, I could not find like sources for this, but supposedly Abraham Lincoln had it at his inauguration, mock turtle soup. So it was one of those meals that just was very hearty, but also very like warm and cozy. So people would have it at Christmas time, but then they also started having it all throughout the year. So that is my favorite recipe. Just because it's cool to be able to say like, oh yes, I had mock turtle soup for dinner tonight. So, but and all the recipes are based off of Victorian recipes, and I include like the year of the recipe that I do base these recipes off of. So they're as authentic as possible without you finding a calf's head for your mock turtle soup because I don't
Doesn't
know
everybody have one? Doesn't everybody have?
Yeah.
I live down the street from a preserve, so I mean,
There you
I'm
go.
gonna go looking for turtles, but it'd be like 1,000 of these little ones like
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
I heard it. I heard that turtle. Actually, I've never eaten it, but I heard that actual turtle tastes like chicken. But
Yeah,
then
there you go.
but then I heard like somebody in cannibal terms. I've heard calves taste like chicken too. But we're not gonna we won't go any further into that. It's funny because the celebrations that went on during the Victorian age were in contrast of what happened earlier, like years before. And my favorite story is always that the 12 Days of Christmas was just like so ribald and crazy. And I mean, if you had carolers, you had people coming to your door. If you didn't treat them well, they'd break your windows and
right. Bring us that figgy pudding.
Yeah, damn it! Come on? you figgy pudding or nothing. But yeah, I mean, people don't realize that. And it was easier for the middle class and upper class to actually go and feed anybody that came up to the door. And that's where a lot of the traditions of hospitality actually come from.
Yeah.
And I love where, in the song, in the original version of the wassail song, where it's, we're just children whom you may have seen before. And then it became like the children would come begging. And then I kept thinking to myself, geez, I wonder if this is like, would have been a tie-in to like the Beggar's Night and how things became, how, kids go out begging for candy during Halloween.
Yep. Trick or
And
treating.
there's a huge Celtic overtone to it. And everything comes from, really actually most of our, especially where we live, most of our traditions actually come from England.
Yeah.
If you think about it. Now, when you were working on this book, did you ever think that it would become so obsessive? Because I know with me, when I'm working on several things, especially the Victorian era, I become so obsessed with it that I have to go and I can't stop. It's almost like I dream about it.
Yeah, pretty much. Whenever I get a chance to write a book, which doesn't happen as often as I would like, just because I'm a mama now on top of everything else, when I get a chance to really dive into it, I just get lost in it. And it's just absolutely fascinating to me. And I'm trying to track down documentaries and photographs and these recipes. Looking through the recipes was so interesting to me. I've never done anything like it before. And here you are looking at someone's recipe. Someone probably read this 100 years ago, 150 years ago, and made this exact dish that I'm now serving to my family. So it's so interesting and almost an honor in a way that I don't take lightly, that like these stories that were told 150 years ago and these recipes that were cooked and brewed, I'm now passing that on to other people so that it can continue and it can live on. And in a way, they're almost like ghosts themselves, outliving the people that said these stories and shared these dishes. And, I'm obsessed with the Victorian era, especially when it comes to, like death and dying and mourning and grief. And I do think that the telling of scary stories at Christmas time goes hand in hand with people grieving loved ones, especially in the Victorian era. People died younger. People died more frequently. Children died, at such a pace. So death was a very common part of life. And I think nowadays we kind of push it to the side. We don't think about it until it's right in our face. Whereas I feel like the Victorians had a healthier relationship in a way. Some people look at, the postmortem photography and the Victorian hair memento mori pieces, and people think like, oh gosh, like what's wrong with that? But I think the people that have lost loved ones, they get it. And I think that the Victorians may have had things figured out. And again, I think that we're returning to the way things used to be, with, sharing recipes and sharing stories and embracing the darkness and not being afraid of it. Working on this book was transformative for me. And my holiday celebrations for me, I've been struggling trying to figure out how the heck am I going to celebrate Christmas, without my brother. And this, I think, is the start of something new that I can embrace and can incorporate him into it as well. And I think the more that people can do that for their own holidays, that I think it's good. It's healthy.
And if anybody ever has an interest in that subject, there are death doulas out there. You can get them. They're on Instagram all over the place.
Yeah.
People who work for hospice, and they're really wonderful people. And every one of them comes right out and says, it's a natural thing. We have got to get used to it. And they all talk about the same thing we're talking about today. It's sort of like back to Victorian age and earlier, it was a fact of life. You would have 6 kids and maybe 2 of them would actually, get to 20 years old.
Yeah.
Your mortality rates were astronomical. I remember researching one gentleman that he had 2 wives that died in childbirth, and then he outlived 2 more wives. So I mean, it's really something that we have to look at. And then you have the whole myth of the good death, which, you die at home surrounded by, friends and family, rather than, of course, with the onset of the Civil War, that was shattered.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it becomes hidden. And I think that's why it's important that we start looking at that time period and understanding it. While there's a lot that was wrong with it, because we start looking at the Victorian workhouses and
Yes.
and debtors'
Yes.
prisons and being transported down to Australia and the other colonies, and that's and involuntary servitude and all that. But when we start looking at some concepts, I think we should really start looking into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that people got together. And as we were talking off air about spiritualism,
mm-hmm.
and back then, people had seances and they would practice, and they would get together once a week or twice a week or whatever at somebody's home, because you didn't have all the distractions. And I think what we do now is, I hate to say it, but I mean, I go and, if I can go and hang out with some people, and go and just talk paranormal, talk
mm-hmm.
scary stuff, or actually go and like, let's all get together and, I would say, pop some popcorn, but that doesn't do it. We have to get pizza and wings and all that stuff. And watch, a scary movie that's on TV or a DVD. I think that harkens back to that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that it's important, because it's almost like, and I'll just throw a little thing about witchcraft in here, because this is what drives me up the wall about fuzzy bunnies. It's sort of like nobody looks at the bad stuff. Nobody looks at that dark side, but you have to have balance. You have to have, good side and, dark stuff. And people need to go and recognize both. And I think by telling those spooky stories, they were morality plays. They were really, just oral traditions that were passed on, oral family histories that were passed on.
Yeah.
And we lose that now. Everything is, if I don't have my phone glued to me, I know I'm in trouble. Oh, wait a minute. Amanda, here you are right here. But I mean, that's where we're missing it. Now, we got a few minutes left. I want everybody, and I'm hoping I have your correct email or your correct website at the bottom. Scrolling.
Yes.
Tell everybody like how they can get a hold of your books, because your Victorian book was gone. Because guys, wait a minute, guys. Let me just say something. So Johnny come lately here. Gee, Amanda, I would love to get a book from you. Because I don't want to order it off Amazon. I'd rather have the author get it. They get full royalty on it. They and I get an autographed book that I can put in my little, my little bookshelf going, oh, it's autographed. And as an author myself, I know how it works. But yeah, how can they get a hold of any of your works? And you've got some other stuff on your website too.
Yeah, so if people go to spookeats.com, there's a link up there for my shop that includes all of the books that I have out. They are available on Amazon if you want them nice and quick. But if you're willing to wait a little bit, they are also available in my Etsy shop, and that's all on the spookeats.com/shop section. You can click on personalized copies, and that would take you to my Etsy shop. Unfortunately, A Very Frightful Victorian Christmas, like Tim said, is sold out on my Etsy shop, and I'm not getting more in before Christmas because it is next week. So if you do want this before Christmas, you will have to go to Amazon, unfortunately. Spookeats.com, that's where you can find all of my books. I've got some t-shirts that like promote ladies in the paranormal, and I've got a page up about upcoming events, upcoming investigations and ghost hunts. So spookeats.com, and then if you go on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, all that fun stuff, it's just all at Spookeats. The Feminine Macabre also has its own Instagram account, and that's just at the Feminine Macabre over on Instagram. But yeah, if you want the Very Frightful Victorian Christmas, unfortunately, you got to go to Amazon right now. Otherwise, if you are willing to wait till after Christmas and you want a signed copy, they will be back in the shop eventually.
Listen, if somebody wants it, this is what I always tell people because I think like up at Paranormal Oddities, there's only two copies of my book left, so I always tell people this: if you really want it and you want it as a gift for somebody, give them an IOU and I'll get it to you.
There you go.
I'll get it to you. Just give them an IOU, and then when I get my next order and when the books are printed, we'll get that right to you. Now, we do have a question from my buddy Commander Bill Randall of the USS Edson. Is figgy pudding actually made from figs? Asking for a friend, Nan. Okay. So really, what is it made out of? As a matter of fact, I want to know.
Okay, so basically, nowadays, yes, but originally, no. Christmas pudding or plum pudding or figgy pudding, they were all used to describe the same thing. Originally, it was more of like a meat texture. Some grains were included in it. It was held in intestines and hung to dry, and until you had to eat it. Over the years, it got sweeter, thank goodness, with more fruits being added. But a lot of times the word plum really just meant dried fruit. So raisins, plums, possibly. And it was actually banned by the Protestants.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. Luckily, one of the King Georges, I don't remember the number at the top of my head, but he reinstated it as part of the Christmas celebrations. But they were outlawed for a very short time because they were too decadent. Around the Victorian era, that's when it really got nice and sweet. And only until recently were figs actually included in the recipe. And some figgy puddings still don't include figs. It's a very personalized recipe, similar to wassail. Depending on the family, the region, wherever you are, it can be very different. The recipe that I included does have figs just because I love figs. And I did find several recipes that did include figs. So I thought, all right, it is authentic enough. We'll put the figs in, but originally not at all. But it didn't even resemble a pudding, in my opinion, at all.
Now I have a personal question because I remember the old Irish, what we used to call the white lace Irish up in Boston for my mother's family, and they would put coins in a pudding. Is that a tradition that?
Oh,
it was inside. Yeah, it was some kind of pudding. I'm not sure if it was figgy pudding or blood pudding or something, but I remember it was at Christmas, and they would and it was always good luck and
a choking hazard.
Well, no, they put like they used to put like half dollars in.
Okay.
Now, I was always worried about that. I don't think I'd want to put a dime in, but it was always like the half dollars, like the Kennedy half dollars when I was growing up, and that's always amazing to me because. Again, that's a Christmas tradition where, it meant that the rest of the year was going to be fruitful for you. Yeah. The other thing is the late Raymond Buckland, everybody kind of knows Ray. He used to always burn the Yule log, for the 7 days of the Christmas season. And it's funny now because, when I had talked to him before he passed, of course.
Yeah.
Actually, I could talk to him now, but I don't want to bother him. He's got stuff to do. But he said what him and Tara did was they used to get a large white candle, and they would go and they would burn that for the 7 days, and that would be on their ancestor altar and that sort of thing. So a lot of the traditions have morphed into something that's a little bit easier to take care of now. But you know what? I'm just gonna tell you right now, kid. Next time I see you, figgy pudding, but don't put it in intestines because that reminds me of haggis. And
I was gonna say my husband loves haggis, so watch out.
He looks like the type that would eat that stuff. although it's not. It's actually better than the mock haggis. The real stuff. It's barley.
It's like stuffing.
It's more stuffing. The mock stuff is like no, the only thing that's and you know what and people are probably like gagging because they're talking about intestines. But what do you think your sausages are made out of? What do you
exactly?
If you go to any good butcher, you're not going to go and get the artificial stuff. You're going to get actual in sheep's intestines, and that's what you want to use. I gotta thank you, Amanda. I'm so thrilled that you were here tonight. This is great. And you know what? I'm one of those guys that are waiting for your book, until it comes back. And this is something that I wish everybody would really kind of sit down, and this is why I admire you, because of the fact that you go and you find a subject that like you can really get passionate about, and you can tell how passionate you get when you start talking about even the recipes and the traditions and all the different stuff that's going on. And you're like, and here's an last important question. How much stuff didn't you put into your book? Yeah.
So much. Maybe there'll be a volume 2. We'll see. I don't know.
Oh no, I seriously think it's gonna, you're all set for maybe 3 volumes on this one. What you should just do is go back another era. Just keep going back eras.
Right, further and further back.
The Edwardian era is always an interesting era. They were some crazy cats. Now, stick on the line.
Yeah.
I want to thank you properly. And again, this was a phenomenal show by a phenomenal guest, and everybody out there. I'm just going to tell you, buy her books. You won't be sorry. They are very good, factual, documented. They're 100%. I can't say enough good things about Amanda's books. So Amanda, just stay on the line for a couple seconds here, kiddo.
Thank you.
And today, really, when you think about it, we lost so many traditions over the years. We've lost so much. And I was brought up without a lot of traditions. There were some, like if we'd go visit relatives in Massachusetts, or they had traditions, but more traditions than we had. So when America became a melting pot, we lost these things. And it's a shame that we have. And now my wife and I, she's a Polish Russian that really still carries on a lot of the traditional traditions. And I love the fact that we go and we practice them here. So anyway, guys, thank you for being on the show tonight, or hanging out the show. You're all part of the show. Thanks for coming in. And we'll see you next week here at the Black Cat Lounge, where Elite meet. Where? Next to the dumpster transfer station, which is like over there. We'll talk to you next week. Take care. And guys, buy Amanda's books. Okay? Just go out and buy them. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Buy them. Ciao, babies.